Is it possible for a story to be a masterpiece if the person at the center of it is genuinely irredeemable? That is the uncomfortable question sitting at the heart of Mushoku Tensei. Rudeus is not simply rude, selfish, or immature. Some of his behavior is disturbing enough that viewers stop caring about the rest of the story before it has the chance to prove itself. But that does not automatically settle whether Mushoku Tensei is well written. A terrible protagonist can still belong to a great story.
Huh?
The real test is whether the writing understands what makes him terrible and whether it does anything meaningful with that truth.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Rudeus may be the most important reason Mushoku Tensei works. He may also be the biggest reason people reject it. His failures give the story somewhere to go. He begins isolated, emotionally damaged, and unable to form healthy relationships. That creates the possibility of real transformation. But the worse his starting point becomes, the more carefully the story has to handle him. A difficult protagonist can create tension, discomfort, and emotional depth. But there is always a danger. If the story treats his behavior as harmless comedy, rewards him too quickly, or avoids showing meaningful consequences, then the redemption begins to feel unearned. That is not a complaint about Rudeus simply being unlikable. It is a question about how the writing frames him.
Right.
The strongest criticism of Mushoku Tensei is not simply that Rudeus does bad things. It is that the series sometimes appear more interested in moving past those moments than seriously challenging them. Certain scenes are treated lightly. Rudeus continues receiving friendship, affection, and opportunity even after behavior that many viewers find deeply uncomfortable. And because the story is told so closely through his perspective, the audience may feel as though it is being asked to remain patient with him longer than they are willing to accept. And that criticism is fair.
What?
A redemption story cannot survive on the idea that the character will eventually improve. The writing has to show that improvement matters. It has to make his failures affect his relationships, his choices, and the way he sees himself. Otherwise, growth becomes something the audience is told to notice rather than something the story has earned.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Let's pause for a second. This channel, Anime Source Central, explores why anime fans argue, judge, and become emotionally divided over the stories that they love. So if you find that very interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. Now, does Rudeus' growth feel earned? Rudeus does change.
What?
He begins forming real relationships instead of living entirely inside his own fear and selfishness. He accepts more responsibility for the people around him. He confronts parts of the isolation and failure that defined his previous life. And he makes gradual, imperfect attempts to behave differently. And those changes are very real. But they do not erase what came before, because progress is not automatic forgiveness. That distinction is important because the story does not need every viewer to forgive Rudeus for his development to matter. What it needs is believable movement. Does he make different choices? Does he understand people more deeply? Does he become more responsible when someone depends on him? If the answer is yes, then growth exists, even if some viewers still decide the starting point was too disturbing for them to continue.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Now there must be something for the character to redeem. If Rudeus began as a healthy and respectable person, the story will be more easier to watch. But there would also be far less to transform. The challenge is that terrible behavior does not automatically create a meaningful redemption arc. The ugliness has to serve more than shock, comedy, or fantasy wish fulfillment. The story must examine it. It must allow failure to shape the character's journey, and it must make improvement feel difficult enough that change actually means something. The deeper question beneath Rudeus' story is not, was he secretly a good person? It is more closer to, can this person become human again? That is a very powerful question. But the power depends entirely on whether the writing is willing to take the answer seriously.
Correct!
Mushoku Tensei is often praised for his world building, animation, emotional storytelling, and sense of progression. And those strengths matter. But technical quality does not automatically erase questionable framing. A series can be beautifully made and still mishandle parts of its protagonist.
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
It can create a convincing fantasy world while making certain character moments feel too forgiving. That does not mean the entire work becomes worthless. It means greatness is rarely clean. Some viewers may admire the world and emotional development while still believing the series fails to challenge Rudeus enough. Others may believe his slow improvement is exactly what gives the story value. Both reactions can exist because they are judging different parts of the writing. One side focuses on the transformation, the other focuses on what the story allows Rudeus to avoid.
That is not correct. Because according to the encyclopedia,
Anime often explores damaged, disturbing, or morally compromised people. Series such as Berserk, Monster, and Evangelion are not identical to Mushoku Tensei, but they demonstrate a wider principle. And that is, a story does not need a morally acceptable protagonist to say something meaningful. Art is not a manual on how to be a good person. Sometimes it is a mirror showing what people become when they fail, hide, or refuse to change. But sometimes a mirror still needs clarity. If the writing cannot decide whether behavior is tragic, comedic, or harmless, the audience may lose trust in the story's purpose. And I feel, in my opinion, that is why Rudeus remains so divisive. He is not only a test of whether viewers can tolerate a flawed protagonist, he is a test of whether the story can transform disgust into meaningful development.
but wait, there's more.
So can a masterpiece have a terrible hero? Yes. A deeply flawed protagonist does not automatically prevent a story from being great, but the story has to earn that greatness. It must examine the character's flaws, show believable growth, and allow consequences to matter. Mushoku Tensei succeeds at some of that more clearly than others. Rudeus shows genuine progress that is clearly seen. But sometimes the series also contains moments where the framing feels too light for the behavior being shown. That tension is the real reason the debate continues, not because every critic misunderstands the story, and not because every fan excuses Rudeus. The disagreement comes down to whether his growth is strong enough to overcome the way the story sometimes handles his failures. So the real question is not whether Rudeus is a good person, it is whether Mushoku Tensei truly confronts his worst behavior, or sometimes make it too easy for both Rudeus and the story to move past it. One character we know that there is absolutely no debate about is Sukuna. Everyone and their pet goldfish loves Sukuna. But the question is, did JJK ruin his potential? What exactly am I talking about? Well, you have to click the video on the screen to find out. So see you there, and thanks so much for watching, and that's it. Go on.